So today we have three professionals coming here to talk to us about the aquatic ecosystems. Our first speaker is Mary Brown, who is an expert on the conditions in the water. Can you tell us what you study, please?
Yes, of course. I study the living animals that live underwater and what affects them.
What do you mean when you say affect?
There are many things that affect the aquatic ecosystems, such as how deep the water is, the temperature, the flow, and the amount of dissolved nutrients. The water is usually colder further down in the water than at the surface. Currents can also change the temperature too.
Does the sunlight have any effect on the aquatic life?
Yes, sunlight goes a small depth in the water.
What is this?
Depth in water. This area is called the aquatic zone, where phytoplankton of photosynthetic algae live. Phytoplankton is consumed by zooplankton, a tiny animal that free floats.
Is there more than one zone?
Yes, the second zone is called the aphotic zone. It's darker and lower than the photic zone, and photosynthesis does not take place there.
Where do most aquatic organisms live?
Most benthos live in rocks or sediments at the bottom of the body of water. This area is called the benthic zone.
And how do these organisms survive?
They live off of oxygen, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus.
Okay, and now we are going to hear from the freshwater ecosystem and estuary specialists. Tell us what are the main points of the freshwater ecosystem are?
Yes, there are three main points. The first one is rivers, streams, creeks, and brooks. They mainly come from mountains and hills and have very little plant life. The second main group is lakes and ponds. In these types of freshwater, there are plankton. The last group is freshwater wetlands.
Can you go more in depth about what is a wetland?
Yes, a wetland is when soil is covered by a small amount of water for a certain amount of time.
Okay, thanks. You are also an expert on estuaries. Can you give us a brief definition of that?
Yes, of course. An estuary is also a wetland, but is when a sea collides to a river.
Do estuaries occur often?
Well, there are quite a few located in mangroves.
Okay, and since these are mixture between salt and freshwater, do they benefit the aquatic ecosystem?
Yes, they are actually very important. They serve as a nursing center for many small aquatic animals. They also create biomass.
What would happen to the estuary if the water course changes?
If an estuary changes course, the temperature of water changes, and the amount of minerals in the water can go up or down.
Thank you. Last is the marine ecosystems professional. Will you please tell us what you study?
We study the zones of the ocean and what lives in the different levels.
How many zones are there?
There are three main zones. One zone is the intertidal zone. This is the closest level to the surface, so the living things there are exposed to changes in temperature because they live at low tide.
What are the other two zones called?
The other two photic and aphotic zones. The photic zone only allows small living things to survive here, like phytoplankton. The aphotic zone is the deepest part of the ocean, and the animals here have to be able to live in cold temperatures and darkness of this part.
Well, thank you to all of these professionals that have spoken today, and I hope that you learned something.